The moment didn't feel explosive at first. There was no shedding, no dramatic confrontation, no viral outburst engineered for headlines. Instead, it unfolded in a way that was almost more powerful, quiet, direct, and impossible to ignore. The kind of moment where the truth doesn't need volume because it carries weight on its own. And as the conversation continued, what became clear wasn't just a critique of a player, but a deeper reflection of where the game itself is headed. And who is truly equipped to carry it there? Because beneath the comparisons, the branding, and the growing noise around rising stars, there is a much simpler reality that basketball has always respected above everything else: production. Not personality, not projection, not potential, but what actually happens when the ball leaves your hands and meets the rim. That's where narratives either hold up or collapse. And in this case, the gap between perception and performance had finally been addressed in a way that couldn't be spun or ignored. That Angel Reese has never lacked confidence. In fact, that confidence is part of what made her such a compelling figure from the very beginning. She plays with emotion, with presence, with an edge that demands attention. And in a league that is constantly fighting for visibility, that kind of personality can be incredibly valuable. It brings eyes, it builds identity, it creates moments. But there's a line where confidence has to be supported by consistency. And that's exactly where the conversation shifted when Lisa Leslie spoke. She didn't attack Reese's character or dismiss her potential. What she did instead was focus on the one area that matters most for a player in Reese's position: finishing at the rim. It sounds simple, almost too simple for a debate this large, but that's precisely why it matters. Because for a player with Reese's size, strength, and role on the floor, those shots aren't optional highlights. They are the foundation of everything else. And when that foundation cracks, it doesn't just affect individual stats, it impacts the entire structure of a team. The numbers had already been circulating. Missed layups weren't just isolated moments. They were patterns. Patterns that showed up in box scores, in advanced metrics, and most importantly, in games that slipped away possession by possession. And when Leslie pointed directly at that issue, she wasn't introducing something new, she was confirming what everyone had already seen but hadn't fully confronted. That's what made it hit differently. It wasn't a debate anymore. It was a diagnosis. What made the moment even more significant was where it happened. Not on a debate show designed for controversy, not through anonymous criticism, but face-to-face, in Reese's own space. That changes everything. Because it removes the distance that usually allows players to dismiss criticism as noise. There was no noise here, just clarity. And for Reese, that moment becomes a turning point, not because it tears her down, but because it defines what she has to build next. At the same time, in a completely different lane, Caitlin Clark's impact continues to grow in a way that feels almost mechanical in its consistency. There's no need for comparisons or declarations because the results speak loudly enough on their own. Every game, every stat line, every sold-out arena adds another layer to a reality that is becoming harder to overstate. She isn't just performing, she's shifting the scale of the entire league. And that's where the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. On one side, a player navigating the balance between image and efficiency, still working to align her performance with her ambition. On the other, a player whose production has already forced the league to adjust around her. It's not about who is more talented or who has the higher ceiling. It's about who is delivering in ways that change outcomes, not just conversations. This is what Lisa Leslie understood better than anyone in that moment. Her career wasn't built on moments of attention, it was built on dominance in the areas that matter most. Efficiency, discipline, execution. The things that don't always trend, but always win. And when she spoke about Caitlin Clark's impact, it wasn't framed as favoritism or hype. It was framed as recognition. Recognition of what happens when a player's presence elevates not just her team, but the entire ecosystem around her. Because the truth is, the league doesn't grow from potential alone. It grows from players who turn games into events who make every possession feel like it matters, who create a reason for people to keep watching. That's where Clark has separated herself not just as a player, but as a catalyst. And whether people like it or not, that kind of impact changes how everything is measured. For Angel Reese, the path forward is still wide open. That's the part that often gets lost in moments like this. Criticism, especially when it's this direct, can feel like a closing door. But in reality, it's the opposite. It's a map. A clear, undeniable outline of what needs to improve in order to reach the level she's aiming for. And if she embraces that, if she sharpens the one area that's holding her back, the entire narrative around her can shift just as quickly as it formed, because the league doesn't stay still. It evolves constantly, and players either rise with that evolution or get left behind by it. Right now, the spotlight is wide enough for multiple stars, but it is not forgiving enough to ignore the difference between hype and execution. And that's the tension that makes this moment so compelling. Not just who is right or wrong, but who adapts, who improves, and who ultimately proves they belong at the center of what comes next. As the new season approaches, that question hangs heavier than ever. Not just over Angel Reese or Caitlin Clark, but over the entire direction of the league. Because this isn't just about individual careers anymore. It's about defining what success looks like in a new era of women's basketball, one where visibility is higher, expectations are sharper, and the margin for inconsistency is smaller than ever. So now it turns to you. Do you think Angel Reese can make the adjustments and silence the critics the same way she's embraced the spotlight? Or has Caitlin Clark already set a standard that's going to be almost impossible to catch? And more importantly, what truly matters more in today's game: confidence and presence, or cold, undeniable production? Let me know your thoughts, and if you're following this evolving story, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned, because this is far from over, and the next chapter might change everything.